Hello, avid readers, book nerds, or casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along, brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and this is our read-along of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang.
Woohoo, new book, new year. Here we go.
Indeed.
I have a couple of, immediate off-the-bat reactions so far. First of all, this week we were supposed to read chapters 1 through 3.
Thank you. I was about to chime in with what we're covering.
My first observation is that I'm an idiot because I did not connect Poppy War with opium.
Yeah.
The first chapter makes that connection pretty clear, but I felt very silly for not having made that connection on my own, just based on the title.
I mean, I made the connection once they started talking about how, her foster parents are these, or at least the mom is, this drug lord, kingpin character, like she's running this, smuggling ring. But yeah, Poppy, opium makes sense. Also, this is reminding me very heavily of my Empires in Asia class.
Oh, I forgot you took that.
That I took last year. So we're in China, and the Federation of Mugen is Japan, and the tall Westerners who came in and saved them with their navy from Japan,
Yeah.
it's bits and pieces of history kind of compiled into one one thing. So, and there's the barbarians in the hinterlands to the north. That's the Mongols. They talk about, the old empire and how it was all united, but then when that empire fell, it got fractured into multiple pieces. That's what happened with the Mongolian Empire. It's very, the author definitely knew a lot about the history of the Asian continent, and it shows. It's very cool.
It's very intentional. Yeah, for sure. My second gut reaction is this is Asian Harry Potter.
But less it's not magic school. It's fantasy school.
Yes.
It's I didn't expect it to be an academy fiction type situation.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. It's we're in we're in an academy now. And there's these different cliques. There's not houses necessarily.
Different apprenticeships.
Yes.
Yes.
And the lore master is Trelawney.
Yeah.
So. But not.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes.
I'm also, yeah. But so those are my first initial reactions. It's wow, I'm dumb for not noticing that this is obviously going to include opium. And two, this is a lot more Harry Potter than I anticipated, even though it's not.
And there's a lot of stuff in actual Chinese history about opium use and wars on drugs being fought over opium and the way opium was weaponized against common people. There's a very deep history behind this, and I respect the
and it's very clearly going to be an integral part of the story. So,
yeah, for sure.
Again, should have been more obvious, but
yes.
From the very beginning, she's she basically bribes her tutor to tutor her with opium.
Right.
She's already counting, she's interacting a lot with opium as her foster mother's, I don't even know what you call her.
Auntie Fong.
Well, no, I mean what you would call Rin's relationship to her. She's her mule. Is that the term? I don't know.
She's just, I don't know, basically slave labor. They adopted.
Yes.
Well, I'm really enjoying the random bits of world building / lore that we're getting with how she's a war orphan, and there was a mandate by the government where families that had less than a certain number of kids were forced to adopt war orphans, because otherwise they become beggars or thieves or whatever, and they're just going to become like a bigger problem later on. So I was like, wow, that is fascinating, and it totally makes sense why a government would want that to happen. Like would force families to adopt war orphans.
Which is kind of like Harry Potter, because he's an orphan. Kind of a war orphan for the wizards. And his aunt and uncle are forced to adopt him, and they treat him like crap. Just saying. I think this is better so far. Rin is actually quite likable.
Yeah. Yes, she is. I wasn't expecting it's way darker than I was expecting, really. The kind of the first conflict that we get is between Rin and her foster mom about how they're trying to marry her off to this import guy, like this guy who's this big wig in the import, like shipping and receiving world.
Yeah, he's the import inspector.
And basically they're using her as like a chess piece where, we're going to marry you off to this guy, and then we're going to have sway, and smuggling is going to be easier now. We're going to make more money smuggling drugs. So,
well, and then when Rin,
she's 14.
She's right. She's a child. And then when she tells her stepmom that she's going to try to get into an academy instead, her stepmom's like, "Are you worried about getting married? Are you worried about like the marital bed?" And Rin's like, "That hadn't even crossed my mind, honestly, until just this moment." And then her stepmom basically tells her just to drug him until, like, little by little every night.
Yeah.
Until he, forgets.
The language that she used was so, like, visceral, though.
Yes.
And I honestly appreciated it, because that was reality. Like, not only in this book, but that's, like, been a reality for women that have been married off for profit for their families, like, for a very, very long time. So I kind of appreciated that the book explored, like, the feelings and the dread and in ways that wives coped, with their situations. It was really heart-wrenching and dreadful, but also
honest
in a sick and twisted way, like fascinating to hear, like all the different things that all the different suggestions she gave to Rin for how she could
make it better for herself, or make it bearable.
Yeah. And it was also kind of a self-report,
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
We never really see the foster father because he's constantly just high on opium.
Right. And their marriage is also an arranged marriage. So.
Right.
Yeah. There's also, so she tests, she passes because she's got super memory skills.
Man, that also, so it's just interesting that, okay, when we read, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. The book that we read before is the tea magic.
Oh, Magic Steeped in Poison.
Thank you, because I was mixing that title with the title of the second book that I haven't even read yet.
A
Venom, Soft and Sweet, Dark and Sweet, and I was mixing them in my brain. A Magic Steeped in Poison. With that book, there's also like this girl from this hick town that's going to the capital of the empire to take a test and try to be in this.
Right. Yes.
There's similarities.
Is Poppy War technically a YA? I suppose it is.
I've only ever seen it in the fantasy section. I haven't seen it in the YA section.
Yeah, but I think it's a crossover. I think it hits some benchmarks, but my suspicion is that it will get much darker, and we'll put it solidly out of being YA. But initially, it comes across that way.
Like, it has YA characters that's tackling really, like, dark themes, like drug use and arranged marriages and, like...
That happens that happens in YA sometimes too, though. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, you're right. This just feels way more visceral than a YA.
Yes, I agree.
But
so maybe it's more of a new adult. We'll see. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe. So the first 3 chapters, we'll see what happens. But
yeah.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so these are really the only two books so far that we read that one, and then we're reading this one, and those are the only books I think that have been like Asian authors that we've read, right? As far as I
Yes.
know.
That you and
And
I have read on the podcast, yes.
it was just interesting to me
The similarities.
that
Yeah.
the similarities between the two and how like testing specifically and competing against other people that are also testing with you is like a theme explored in both of those. And it reminds me of like seeing Red,
Turning Red.
or Turning Red, the that movie,
Yeah.
and like,
The Disney Pixar movie.
you know, the strict parent archetype and the like having to be perfect and become a doctor or whatever, like how that's kind of a part of culture, like Asian culture, that
Yeah.
it feels like it's bled into these books.
I think it's very intentionally included, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I see what you're saying, for sure.
I just think that's interesting.
Yeah.
That it's one of those things where it's like, it's not like super unusual for these themes to occur, but it's just weird that it happened twice, and both by Asian women authors. And
Yeah.
I thought it was just worth noting.
Yes.
Or commenting on. Anyway.
For sure. The test in this one, at least, was very much just the first chapter. And now we're in the academy and things are moving that way. Whereas
I appreciate that.
The Magic Seed and Poison, the whole thing was testing over and over again.
But with that testing, that was like tea magic, and it was interesting testing. But this one was just like
Paper.
History, facts, and math.
Yeah. Yes.
This one is much more like
Very
just academic.
ACT.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
But 12 hours long. Like the whole testing thing seemed very traumatic to me. I would have also not done well. But Rin does great. So, in fact, she does so well that they think she's cheated. But she has not. So she like the preparation of going to the school is also very violent, in that her tutor's like, oh, you have to cut your hair, because if you don't cut your hair, it'll be a liability for you. And you'll get pulled into some alley, and we won't see you again until you turn up in a brothel somewhere. Like, okay. So that's where she's going. She's leaving her little town to go somewhere where it's very dangerous. Not that her little town isn't dangerous too. It's just different. But,
right, because like her, like the Fongs are like, she threatens her life at one point. She was like, do you want to die? Because like when she was trying to debate with her foster mom about letting her study for this test, she was at first like super against it, but she kind of like used her leverage on like what her knowledge is of their business and everything against them. And she did not, like, she had no doubts in her mind that they would kill her if they could get away with it and tie up the loose end. So it's kind of interesting because normally the town and the situation, sometimes, I mean, the town and the situation that the person in like the hero's journey comes from isn't like ideal, but it's usually not like I'm a war orphan and my foster parents are drug lords and
they really don't care about me at all.
Yeah, and they threaten my life, and they're gonna marry me off to this like 50-year-old man, and I'm 14. It's like, this has been such a dramatic, like, oh, you were really in the gutter, dude. Like, I mean, Harry Potter is also in the gutter, but not nearly as extreme,
right?
In my opinion. But
yeah, right. Like, yeah. His aunt and uncle weren't actually going to threaten his life. They were just mean as heck.
They were just bullies, but they were like normal people. They had normal people jobs. But then she gets to the capital, and even with where she came from and what she was running from, she gets there and she's still like, I hate it here. I want to go home.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, honey.
Right, because there's that whole scene. This is probably what makes it not a YA, is this kind of stuff. But like, there's the scene where that carriage hits a kid,
Oh man.
And then
Oh.
instead of like helping the kid, they just straight up murder it because it's cheaper to pay the funeral costs than to pay like whatever it costs to rehabilitate someone who's been hit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
It just reeks of
Horrifying.
like it's social commentary on
sure.
like what societies look like that are so obsessed with money and profit. Like they show up and everyone is instantly on them, like trying to get their money. Like, oh, I'll carry your bags. Oh, I'll guide you to this place. Oh, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need a cart? Blah blah blah. Like everybody is trying to milk you for every silver penny you've got, and then it's cheaper to kill someone than to maim them and pay for their medical bills the rest of their lives. So even her tutor was like, "Oh yeah, that was a smart driver." Like he it's just such a brutal, like pragmatic mindset that everyone has. You know, makes you feel icky.
For
But
sure.
it's Rin's like eye-opening experience of like first time out of my tiny little town in the big city, and I see a courier get ran down by a carriage and nobody cares.
Right. Right.
Oh, and I just got to say another thing about all the warnings that her tutor gives her
Oh,
about
yeah.
like not eating the street food.
Uh-huh.
That was so gross, man. Like, oh, don't buy soy sauce from this place because they use human hair in it, or like don't
Right.
eat the street pancakes because they use gutter oil, which is them literally scraping the discarded oil from like bigger restaurants from the gutters and repurposing it for their like street carts. Oh no, dude, that
Yeah,
was
super
so
gross.
gross. Oh man, this place, it's like, you know, she gets to the school and it's like, yeah, this place sucks, dude. I don't know. This is not ideal. And it's only going to get worse because it's just going to be even harder than the studying was, according to her tutor.
Yeah. And that's basically chapter 1. Right? Or is that part
Is
of
that
chapter
just 1?
No,
That
chapter
might have been
1,
part of-
that's 1 and 2. Chapter 1 ends with her getting
Yeah.
into the passing the test, and then chapter 2 is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
preparation. And
Getting
chapter
into the
3 is
city.
the first like interaction with her fellow students. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get pretty strong warnings against opium usage and proximity to opium.
Yep. She punches a kid in the face for talking
Yeah.
smack about her tutor.
I can't think of what his name is now, but yeah, and that's the only reason that she gets away with it is because whoever intervenes is like, oh, well, you shouldn't talk about her tutor because you know that's taboo. But
I'm gonna go with, I'm gonna make a prediction. Future love interest,
I hope not. He seems like a total jerk.
but maybe redemption arc and then love interest. You know, maybe she will help him see how snobby he is.
Maybe.
Yin Neja, yeah, that's his name. So we'll see what happens with them. But I feel like, you know, it's like the people that shipped Hermione with Draco. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he is definitely Draco
He is the Draco
so far.
for sure.
So far.
It's interesting the way that this is just something that I've noticed reading this book specifically. When you do some kind of like academy fantasy like this, it's a really clever way to introduce the different like world building elements and the lore drops because you're learning things along with the characters who are students who are literally sitting in an actual history class because that's kind of what it felt like when the teacher was quizzing them on like what's the like they get in there and he's like, oh, we've fought in 5 wars over the past century, we've lost all of them, why did we lose the last one? And they're like talking about these events that have happened and like why the empire is the way it is right now. And so
and we had that really cool, not cool, eye-opening moment for Rin where she's like, oh, I remember this because I literally just memorized it. And so she gives her answer and the teacher's like, that's what was put in the primers for farming communities to propagandize them. That's not what actually happened.
yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. They put whatever they want in those books, man. It's, yeah, that is certainly eye-opening, and also a commentary on, you know, actual real-world history and how misinformation and propaganda is used against communities. I really like the smarty pants boy with the wiry hair.
Her buddy.
Yeah, I like the new buddy a lot. I can tell he's going to be one of my favorites. And it's interesting because him and Jerk Boy that she punched and this other girl who is like one of the only other 3 girls admitted this year were like kind of a trio. Like they all knew each other. They grew up together and they had the same tutor going into this.
Yeah.
But Jerk Boy and Jerk Girl have like buddied up
Yeah.
and kind of outcasted nerdy wiry hair boy.
Which, okay, so I accidentally listened into chapter 4, and so I don't know exactly if this happens in chapter 4, if it happened in chapter 3. But Rin makes the observation of course they've kind of left him behind because he makes them look bad because he knows the answers to things.
That was in chapter 3. Yeah, it was even that was the character actually saying that, like he was self-aware, like, oh yeah, they don't like me because I tested better than them. I beat them.
Yeah.
I was like, he was the top of the whole like empire basically. He was like the top scorer, so that's why they disliked him. What else? I think it was also interesting the way they talked about this. This all reminds me, I think it was the Mughal Empire in China. Oh no, sorry, Mughal was India. There was one of the, it might have been Ming. One of the empires in China also had this sort of like test that you could go and try to take to earn like a higher status, to be like in the court, like higher society. And similarly, it was supposed to be this like, anyone can take it, man. Yeah, like we're all for like equality and like equal opportunity for everyone, but really it got twisted into this way for just like rich people who can afford tutoring to get in, and the poor and downtrodden people who can't afford to, like, you know, the illiterate people, like they're not going to pass. So it was just another way to look like you're doing a good thing,
Right.
but really it just reinforces like social norms. And that is also pulled straight out of history with, I think it was the Ming dynasty, I think, but it's been a bit. Yeah, that was really interesting. And also the whole thing where like only 3 girls were admitted that whole year. So it's like a boys club, this school. I mean, it's a military school, big boys club. They say they only want to accept like the top testers in the whole empire, but it's like all boys admitted. Yeah, it's
Suspicious.
just, yeah, like come on now. I thought that was interesting commentary as well.
For sure. 100%. Chapter 3 ends with the apprentices dropping off the first years at the lore master's place. He's not there. And then they figure out that they've left them in like an area that's full of poppies. And so pretty much all the other students, except for Smarty Boy and Rin, freak out. And Rin is like, oh yes, this is familiar. I'm familiar with these plants. This is no big deal. And all the other kids are like, oh my gosh, we're going to get high just from being around them. And she goes, that's not, like, you.
That's not how it works.
Touch, like
sniffing the flower will not intoxicate you.
Right.
Just because I felt bad about not saying their names. We knew Neja. He's Jerk Boy with black eye. Venka is the girl. And my boy, Kite is Smarty Pants.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah, I think we haven't we only met the lore master dude
Mm-hmm.
in that first opening ceremony thing with the new people, the new students,
I've
and
met
we
him
haven't
again
seen
on
him
accident.
since.
I met him again
Oh.
on accident. He's going to come up in the next
Well.
chapter.
I figured he would. But it's funny that he no-showed to his first class with the students.
Yes.
I have a feeling that there's a method to his madness, and that either he's just really like eclectic, or there's a method to his madness. Either way, I'm here for it. We like a kooky old teacher,
For
you
sure.
know.
For sure. I think the last observation of this chapter was Rin saying that this is like a drug farm, and
Yeah.
that she thinks the teacher goes there to get high.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. And that's where the chapter ends. There was a little thing that, like, there was a moment where they also had martial arts training we didn't talk about, and basically Venka can literally kick someone's head off. So,
Right. Yes.
and so she's dangerous.
And Rin is woefully unprepared.
Right. Right. So something tells me she's not going to be apprenticed in that area of the school.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there was also, they talked about, it's the same, like, magic system that Hunter x Hunter uses, but it's not. What do they call that? The energy.
Oh, ki.
Yes, ki.
I mean, that's kind of like a real life, like, the ki is a thing that people in, like, the real world believe in. But
Right, but, like, also Nen. Did they mention Nen usage in this?
I don't think so.
Maybe they didn't.
Well,
I was just like, oh, it's like Hunter x Hunter. I kind of know. Sort of.
Yeah.
But
It's very like, well, the general kind of calls people out for calling it or like mystifying it and making it like a magical thing. He's like, it's physics, bro. It's you hit certain things at a certain angle at a different speed.
yeah.
And things that appear insane or that are like incomprehensible can happen. So I thought that was cool too. It was interesting.
Right.
So yeah, covered a lot of ground in these first 3 chapters.
We really did.
We have gotten out of the starting zone and into the new area of the school, and we're starting to interact with people, starting to meet new characters, starting to like some, starting to dislike some, getting our bearings. But I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, me too. It's really engaging. So. For next time, you're just gonna read 2 chapters, chapters 4 and chapter 5.
Cool.
Chapters 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Yep, 4 and 5. Easy, easy.
Lemon squeezy. Nice. Well, I guess until next time, happy reading.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Later.
Bye.